What's going on YouTube? Big Dawg Brett. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about the Baylor versus the UGA Sugar Bowl game. So I apologize. I am pretty far under the weather. I haven't been able to make a lot of videos just because of that. So drinking some ginger tea here, which is supposed to be a natural remedy, whatever. And also getting after water. My wife got me this for Christmas, and check that out. And that's pretty cool. So thanks, hon. I really appreciate it. I like this thing a lot. So, all right, let's get into it. First and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about the kind of the elephant in the room, so to speak, and that elephant in the room being that UGA is going to be missing a lot of players. So let's actually go through the list of those players, and then we'll start getting into some of the numbers and what and how I think the game is going to turn out. So, all right. We have currently 13 players that we know of that's been confirmed as of today that's going to be out of the game for various reasons. Trying to get this thing situated here. There we go. So, I guess the first one we're going to talk about is Ben Cleveland. First four offensive line guys: Ben Cleveland, Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Wilson, and DeMarcus Hayes. Ben Cleveland, apparently there's some kind of problem with his academic status. Not sure what's going on there. Andrew Thomas declared for the NFL. Isaiah Wilson declared for the NFL. And DeMarcus Hayes is out for an undisclosed reason. Don't really know what's going on with that. Number 5 running back Brian Harrion, undisclosed. It's probably for NFL training. Lawrence Cager is out with an ankle injury. I believe it was a high ankle sprain, if I'm not mistaken. So he's completely out. Then we've got wide receiver Dominic Blaylock, who's out with a knee injury, possible ACL, again, unless I'm mistaken. J.R. Reed came up with a foot injury in this past week. Apparently, he posted a tweet or something that said about he really wanted to play, but unfortunately, he was concerned about his foot. I don't know what's going on with that guy. And then you've got defensive back, I believe it's David Wilson. He's also out for an undisclosed reason. And then you've got defensive line guy Tyler Clark. He's out for an undisclosed reason. Offensive linebacker Walter Grant. He's out with a concussion, so he's in concussion protocol. Inside linebacker Quay Walker, out undisclosed. And defensive back Tyreek McGee for undisclosed. Now, most of these guys have played 11 games or more. 2 of those remaining guys have played in 9 games, and then 1 guy has played in just 6 games. This is a lot of guys to be missing, especially missing 4 guys off the offensive line. I feel like the offensive line has kind of struggled to be able to create the kind of running lanes it needed anyway. But yeah, this is a ton of guys. I mean, this is essentially about 15% of a roster, 16% of a roster of scholarships right here. And pretty much all these guys are 4- and 5-star players. So you're missing a ton of talent. I think that there is a very serious problem at UGA with getting these guys to finish a season, to finish a game. I think that whenever you lose these games, like you lose against Texas, like we did last year, I believe that's pretty detrimental to the whole recruiting process, as well as creating the proper culture for the program. Now, excuse me, sorry. That having been said, if you really kind of break down and you get into it, if you look at the offensive line, Georgia stacked the offensive line position. I don't see an issue here. What's the best way I can explain this? I don't see a huge issue here with losing these 4 guys. We cycle so many guys in and out. I think we'll be fine. I mean, we are going to see a little bit of a drop-off here and there, but I think the mix will be fine. Losing Brian Herring as a running back, while that may be somewhat detrimental, it's not like we're losing a Sony Michel or a Nick Chubb. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the average yards per carry, Brian Herrien is pretty far down on the list. If you look at rushing, obviously DeAndre Swift has more yards per carry. So does Amir White. So does James Cook. So does Kenny McIntosh, Tyler Simmons, Demetrius Robertson, Karius Jackson, Prather Hudson. And, I mean, all of these guys have more yards per carry than Brian Herrien. So Brian Herrien going out is not going to be a huge detriment to the UGA running back situation. All right, so let's look at the wide receivers. Lawrence Cager, yes, I get it. Lawrence Cager, awesome receiver. We'd love to have that guy. But let's talk about what we've got versus what we don't have. So we lost Lawrence Cager. Okay. We still got George Pickens, I think. Still got George Pickens, and George Pickens is our number one wide receiver. Okay. Then we've got Demetrius Robertson, who, believe it or not, is almost as good as Lawrence Cager. We just don't throw him the ball in quite the same way, the same situations. And Dominic Blaylock being out with a knee injury actually, in my opinion, hurt us more than Lawrence Cager. And that's because Dominic Blaylock was averaging 17.2 yards a reception versus Lawrence Cager at 14.1. George Pickens is still averaging right at 15 yards a catch, so we didn't lose him. So we still got our number one guys in a lot of these positions. The DB situation with J.R. Reed. J.R. Reed is good. Don't get me wrong. We like having J.R. Reed. But, you know, what can you do? I mean, he's had 29 solo tackles. He's not the leading tackler on the team. So you've got Eric Stokes, who's right there. I think Mark Webb is out. Is Mark Webb out? No, Mark Webb is still in. So Mark Webb, 29 solo tackles, just as good as J.R. Reed in that aspect. J.R. Reed only has one sack on the year. So, no, he has a shared sack. Azeez Ojulari has 4.5. I mean, he's not our sack guy. He just covers space. So we're okay. We're okay with him not being in the mix. Then we look at Devad Wilson. You know, this guy's 18 solo tackles, 16 assists, no sacks. Not a big loss there. Defensive lineman Tyler Clark. You know, of course, we'd love to keep this guy, but, you know, what can you do? I mean, he did get 2.5 sacks this year for a total loss of 19 sack yards. You know, a guy we'd like to have, but, again, not the most detrimental loss. Losing offensive linebacker Walter Grant. Or, excuse me, I keep saying offensive linebacker. I've been saying it for years. It's outside linebacker, you big dummy. Say it right. Anyway, he's out with a concussion. He was out last game. I mean, I'm not sure why he couldn't have got over that in the amount of time he had, unless it was just something absolutely catastrophic, which I figured we would have heard something by now. But, yeah. So, anyway, let me see if I can find his stats real quick. Okay. Not Tyler Clark. Grant. Look at Grant. It is what it is. Quay Walker. If I'm not mistaken, Quay Walker was a pretty dominant force. There's Trevon Walker. That's not Quay Walker, though. Oh, well. Anyway, I looked at all this stuff earlier. Looking at Tyreek McGee. McGee. Where's that? Here it is. Basically, nothing really substantial as far as this goes. I mean, yeah, we're missing some players, but the way it's spread out, I think we're going to be fine. I mean, it's a lot of guys, but it's not our number one or guy in a lot of these positions. a lot of these guys have really, really good secondary guys standing right behind them or ahead of them. I really don't see an issue. I don't think you're going to see much drop off. I mean, you might see some drop off late in the game just because guys are starting to get tired. And that's going to go into what kind of physical training these guys have had over the past 20-something days. But I think we're fine. I think we're fine. All right, so let's look at Georgia versus Baylor. Georgia is like it started out as a 7.5 point favorite. Now it's down to like 4. Baylor has done extremely well this season. They've won some games by some big margins, and they've lost 2 games to Oklahoma, and that's it. That's all that they've lost to is Oklahoma twice. Oklahoma scored 34 points on them one time, and Oklahoma scored 30 points on them a second time. This leads me to believe that they play a little bit of defense. But unfortunately, their offense really seems to be in a rut. Remind you of anybody? They've played a lot of these teams really tight. So they blew out SFA, whoever that is. They blew out UTSA. Then it kind of got close with Rice. They won that game by 8 points. They beat ISU by 2 points. They beat K-State by a pretty substantial amount, 31-12. They beat TTU by a field goal. They beat Oklahoma State by 20 points almost. They beat WBU by 3 points. They beat TCU by 6. They lost to Oklahoma by 3 points. They beat Texas by 2 touchdowns. And then they absolutely mollywopped KU Jayhawks 61-6. Good night. And then they lost to Oklahoma again by a field goal. So the team absolutely has some talent there. The question is can it compare to what Georgia's doing? Georgia hasn't had a team all year score more than 20 points with the exception of LSU. And LSU has an absolutely unbelievable offense. Looking at what Georgia has done, I mean, and I hate to say it this way, but just holding LSU to 37 points is kind of impressive when you see what they've done to other teams out there. And if you're a Baylor fan and this is your first time watching one of my videos, and maybe you don't keep up that much with what goes on around the league, LSU is just, they're like 50 points a game. They scored 50 points against Texas A&M, 56 against Arkansas, 58 against Ole Miss. They scored 46 at Alabama, 42 on Florida, 66 on Vanderbilt, 65 on Northwest State, 55 against Georgia Southern. I mean, this is a super, super high-powered offense. Super high-powered offense. So Georgia held them pretty low. Do I expect Georgia to do that same kind of performance against Baylor? Yes. A lot of the teams that Georgia play have similar scoring to what you see from Baylor, but Georgia has been able to stifle those guys extremely well. Looking at Baylor's kind of their setup, they tend to pass more than Georgia does. They don't run it quite as much. You get up here to the top so I can kind of compare stats a little better. So their quarterback is Charlie Brewer. Their number 1 receiver is John Lovett. Their rusher is running back John Lovett. Their receiver is Denzel Mims. And they kind of have a ball hawk in Graylin Arnold, 6 interceptions this year, which is really impressive. Georgia only has 2 with Richard LeCount. But he has 300 yards more in passing than Jake Fromm. Our rusher, obviously, DeAndre Swift, is a beast. He's already at 1,200 rushing yards versus John Lovett at 637. Our leading receiver, George Pickens, 552. And this is kind of an interesting story when it comes to receivers. So their receivers, they have an almost 1,000-yard receiver, which I can imagine that if Denzel Mims plays, he will go over 1,000 yards. Then they have Tyquan Thornton. He's at 744 yards. And then they've got R.J. Sneed. He's at 417. If you compare that to what UGA is looking at, we have a 552, a 467, a 333, a 310. I mean, they clearly have their number one and their number two guys is Tyquan and Denzel. So we're going to be looking for our DBs to step up and shut those guys down. The rushing game, they spread it out really, really well in their rushing game. So Georgia leans a little more heavily on DeAndre Swift. And, of course, the backup to that was Brian Herrien. So DeAndre Swift at 195 attempts, which is a lot. And then you got Brian Herrien at 103. Well, Baylor's got John Lovett at 100. I guess it's John McCall Hasty at 101. And then Charlie Brewer, which is the quarterback, at 138 attempts. So clearly the guy's a dual threat quarterback. He wants to try and rush as much as possible. He's got at 138. I mean, he's rushing more than either one of their receivers is on their own, and he's managed to pick up 337 yards this year, which is not bad. It's not bad. But compared to Jake Fromm, who has 35 attempts and a net of 0, he's not. He's not rushing anywhere. Got concrete for feet, man. He rushes just enough to negate the sacks he's taking. That's about it. So what do I expect out of this game? I expect that you're going to see Baylor's going to try and throw the ball the way they traditionally do. Georgia has done a great job all season of stopping any type of rushing quarterback. This is going to stifle that offense quite a bit, I believe. In games where they have had, let me go back here. So let's take a look at their loss to Oklahoma. If we look at the stats for that game, it's not coming up right. I'm not aggravating with that. I don't have the mental fortitude for that right today. Dying over here. Anytime that you have a team that's got a rushing quarterback and that rushing quarterback struggles, it's going to be rough. Notre Dame, they couldn't run the quarterback. Florida really couldn't run the quarterback. Auburn couldn't run the quarterback. Texas A&M couldn't run the quarterback. Georgia Tech couldn't run the quarterback. So it's just not a lot of extra wrinkles you can add to your game here. Now, if this was a regular season game where Georgia went out there, practiced all week, and had the intention of wanting to go out and win this game, do I think Georgia could do it? Absolutely. But now we have to talk about, will they? I don't know. UGA certainly has an opportunity to go out and win this game. This is a beatable opponent. This is a Sugar Bowl. We saw, but last year, man, Georgia could have went out. Georgia had a better team last year, in my opinion, than what we've got this year. Jake Fromm was playing better last year than he was playing this year. That's my opinion. I think we had better receivers last year than we've got this year. And we went out and just absolutely just gave up. We never got off the bus. We got whooped start to finish. We just didn't play the way we should have. We had several chances in that game to win that game and just chose not to do so. And most likely it is because of the lack of college football playoff hangover. Now, that having been said, hopefully Kirby Smart learned his lesson last year and decided that they wanted to put some effort into motivating these guys to get up for this game. And it sounds like, looking at the press conference, it sounds like that's what they've done. And whether they did or not, I don't know, but that's yet to be seen. I hope so. But only being a 4.5, well, we'll just say a touchdown favorite. Only being a touchdown favorite, there's been 5 or 6 teams this year that Georgia has been within 5 or 6 points of that game. So Notre Dame game was a 6-point game. South Carolina game, we lost that. but we lost it by 3 points. Florida was, a 7-point game there. Auburn, 7-point game. Texas A&M, 6-point game. I mean, so there's several games there where the score was close. If Georgia's defense comes out to play, it's going to be tough for them to score. If Georgia's offense comes out to play, it's going to be hard for Georgia to score. But we've got to find a way to generate some offense. Hopefully they've taken a look at a few things and they're going to generate some proper offense. We've got an offensive line, even missing the 4 guys that can generate a proper amount of offense. They should be able to create opening lanes for these guys to be able to run the ball. If Georgia comes out and doesn't want to play, they're going to get whooped. This team, Baylor has everything to play for. Georgia, again, another college football playoff letdown hangover. Which, by the way, news flash to Georgia players. There's no need to be upset about not making the college football playoff. We could not beat any of those teams. We already know we couldn't beat LSU. Already did it. Already lost to them. Probably could have beat Ohio State, but that wouldn't have mattered. You're not going to beat Clemson. We were not going to beat Clemson this year. We were not going to beat Ohio State this year. So I hate to tell you guys this, but buckle up your chin straps and go enjoy the Sugar Bowl because you couldn't have beat those other teams anyway. Go home with another win under your belt. And that's just being real. I mean, I'm a Georgia homer. I'm the biggest Georgia homers you get, most likely. But I look at those teams and I can clearly see a talent disparity between what they have as far as the way everything works and what we have and how it don't work. And for those who are out there talking about the Jake Fromm, Justin Fields issue, say whatever you want to say. Justin Fields plays for Ohio State. Jake Fromm plays for Georgia. So if you want to pull for Georgia, you got to pull for Jake Fromm, whether you like him or not. If you want to pull for Ohio State, you want to pull for Justin Fields, go pull for them. But the whole thing about, well, Georgia let its best quarterback get away. Maybe we did. But at the end of the day, he still couldn't get it done either. So that wasn't going to help us. I don't know what to tell you. You gotta play the cards you're dealt. These are the cards we're dealt. This is what we got to do. This is the cards we got to play. So play them and play them to the best of your ability. This is the team that's in front of you. Play them to the best of your ability. Make Baylor regret ever stepping on the field with you. Don't give away a game. I can't remember who the player was, and I'm sure somebody will tell me down in the comment section, but there was a player that once said that you only get so many games, whether it's in high school, whether it's in college, whether it's in pro, you only get so many games. Make each one of them count. And to me, when I see these players out there living the dream, not caring, man, it's just such a letdown for me. You're living the dream, guys. You're living it. And then you just want to, whatever. That ain't right. Buckle up that chin strap and go to work. Enjoy it while you can, gentlemen, because it won't last forever. So, who do I think is going to win this game? I got to believe that defense is going to hold up again, man. So, I'm going to say Georgia 24. Baylor 17. Same score as the Florida game. So, well, guys, that's all the time I have for today. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day. And as always, God bless. Go Dogs.